Again, I think sometimes parents and students have high expectations of themselves, and they do become frustrated when they're learning that new language. We have to be realistic. The students quite often are only exposed to that target language within the classroom, so for a very limited time throughout the day, whereas they're exposed to English everywhere. They have English on the bus, in the playground, at home, family and friends. So taking that into consideration, we have to understand that certainly the two are not going to be on par, and the children are learning, they are moving forward, but at a different level than they would with the English because they don't have that continual exposure.
In order for your children to learn and enjoy a second language, parents need to set realistic expectations. Work with your children and the focus on the progress from point A to point B. Please do not expect perfect pronunciation, spelling, and sentence structures in the first few years of the study of the second language. Instead, focus on their participation in class and in the community, their willingness to use the language, and the enjoyment they experience from the application of the language in real-life situations.
There's a need for lots of practice, and so parents can't expect their children to come home speaking big sentences right off the bat. It takes quite a bit of time for them to have that chance to hear it, to experience it. In fact, when we look at our international standards testing, they recommend that a student who's even just going to have some basic language skills would need at least 60 hours of exposure and study of that language. And it's not until you get closer to 200 or 250 hours of intense exposure to the language that they actually become fluent. So you can see that it takes quite a while, it's quite an ongoing process to develop their language, and that it just doesn't happen. You can't expect them to come home the first month and be having big conversations with you, but it does develop and you will see their growth. A couple other little things to note when they're learning a language is that the students will probably need more time. There's going to be some delays. They need to input what the question was asked. They need to think about the correct answer. Do I say it this way? Do I use this verb? Do I have all my accords right? So it takes a little extra time for language learners to come back with the response. And another thing that parents will often see is that students start to switch words between the two languages. We call that code switching, and what that means is they might confuse the two words, and parents can be concerned about that, but not to worry. It's actually very typical, and there's no long-lasting effects. Eventually your brain gets everything sorted out, and you'll clearly be able to distinguish between the two languages.
Every learner, every child, every person can learn a second, a third, and a fourth language. It's going to be very individual, because just like all of learners are unique, so will their experiences and their skills will be. But through the work and the practice, they're going to be learning strategies, how to learn languages. Those strategies are going to also work in other parts of their life and other parts of learning. They're going to be developing problem-solving skills. Their brain is thinking in different ways because they're thinking in that second language. They're also going to be developing lots of opportunities to use that language in a totally different environment. They're going to be surprised, or they're going to come into situations where they're going to be able to say a few words or say a lot. So expectations are going to depend on the learner, how much time and how much effort, and a big one is motivation.